and everything else, but I don't feel like she had a well enough assessment when it came to the neurology aspect of it because, you know, I still have to keep telling them, okay, well, she's forgetting, she's forgetting, she's forgetting. You know, she sometimes goes back to thinking she's still working or she wants to leave the house, and that could be a big issue. And I don't think they touched base on that as of yet, which makes me worried for when she comes home. Like, I know it's still going to take time for her brain to heal fully.
Right.
And, you know, only time will tell. But then I don't want her eventually end up leaving the house or something crazy like that.
Right. Yeah, you're fearful for her, and that's definitely understandable. And I can't imagine being in that situation and feeling like you have to be fearful for somebody you love, essentially, because they might not know where they are. They might not know what they're doing, essentially. So, I mean, it's good that you've brought it up with the doctors. I know sometimes it's a little hard to get your point across sometimes where you see things happening and the doctors are like, no, we'll wait it out. We'll see what happens, sort of thing. Is there a way for maybe you to lock the door or do something so that, or child lock it even at night, that she would not be able to, if she was in this sort of disorientation, that she would not be able to figure it out, sort of thing, so you wouldn't have to worry as much at night?
So I basically bought an alarm that I would have to hook up to the door. So if she tries to open the door, the alarm sets off.
Mm-hmm.
But then even with that, I'm like, okay, you know, is that good enough? Because I would have to keep setting up the alarm. I would have to keep making sure that, you know, when the alarm goes off, am I going to have to panic every single time?
Right, yeah. Is there a timer for the alarm, or is it set up where it's every single time somebody opens the door? I know that for me at my house, we have where each door, as annoying as it is, has a sensor and physically says, front door, kitchen door, basement, garage, like, and it goes off every time, and you can adjust the volume and sort of things. And um, I mean, it's helpful for sure, but I can't say that I haven't slept through it either if someone's leaving at 7 a.m. and I don't have to be up, sort of thing, either.
So basically, it's a type of alarm. So every time the door opens, that alarm is going to go off.
Okay.
And I think you can turn it off, but then it's kind of that thing where it's like, okay, if I turn it off, even if it's during the day,
Right.
what if she has an episode and then she decides to open the door and just leave during the day and I'm not home and no one else is paying attention?
Right. So it's not just a nighttime concern, it's an all the time concern. Well, I think you definitely took a right step in purchasing that for starters, because that is just something that even if you're not there and it does sound off and say the door's been open, if somebody else is there, kind of even just staying with her or watching by, they'll hear the sound of saying, oh, the alarm is going off. Clearly someone's opened the door. I'm not near the door. Nobody else is here, sort of thing. And thank you. And it'll make a difference, because if you were home alone and all of a sudden you hear this alarm or you hear music playing or somebody's voice, you're gonna peek your head up from what you're doing and look around. So if somebody's just with her, it might be a good idea just to kind of keep them in the loop as well and well aware and attentive, because I think, just like you, not everybody is used to having to pay more attention, maybe, especially not of somebody who's older than them. Watching a 2-year old is, you have to keep eyes on them at all times because they just like to get into everything. So having to watch an adult, I assume, is much different, but almost similar in some ways.
It's becoming more and more like tedious, I feel like. And I think it started to hit me more even like as I, you know, right after I left her at the hospital, I couldn't go in with her into the emergency room because of everything with COVID still. They're not allowing anyone to go in with the patient into the emergency room. So it becomes more annoying because I'm like, okay, what is she going to tell them? Is she going to remember what she has to say? Or is she gonna forget or is she gonna have an episode? And then I literally eventually I walked home from the hospital to my house
Mm.
just because I was starting to have an anxiety attack and I was like crying the whole way walking because I felt like at that point like I have no control over anything in my life when it comes to what's going on with my mom or my relationship or school. It just feels like it's all jumbled up at one and it's a lot that's come crashing down at the same time. And, I'm a person, I love to walk, but walking from that hospital where it is, it's Montefiore Hospital, to where I live, even though it's all in the Bronx, it's a very good distance from each other. And I don't think anyone else in their right state of mind would probably take the time to want to walk that on a hot summer day. But because my chest was hurting so bad from the anxiety and I was crying, I was like, okay, I can't go on the bus and be able to like function. And then I ended up calling my best friend because she was the only person I felt who I can talk to and calm me down, who knows every single thing about my life
Mm.
and completely understand it and not be judgmental or not criticize. Because when I did talk to my boyfriend before I talked to her, he was the first person I kind of broke down to. And I said all the same things that, I feel like I don't have control over what's going on with her, with my relationship, and um with school. And instead of him saying, like everything's gonna change or it's gonna be different, he's like, well, like, what do you mean with our relationship?
Oh,
Instead of acknowledging the issues that
right.
are currently there, he wants to say like almost like there's no problem in our relationship
Mm.
and kind of just like wants me to take that out of the equation.
Right. So he's in his mind, it's, well, school is your own thing, and your mom, yeah, you can't control that because it's her life. And what are you talking about? Our relationship is just fine the way it is. So looping back to that topic, I know I don't even want to say touched lightly. We dove headfirst into your relationship. So what has changed from the last time we spoke up until now? Have there been more conversations besides the one that you obviously just had with him? Has there been any sort of facilitation of, I can't do this anymore with you, or things need to change, or how are you guys playing that right now?
Every time that conversation does come up of him needing to change and him needing to do things differently and there is an issue there, it's like he says, oh, I know, I know, I know. And it's the constant I know, scenario. But it's like, do you really know or you just think you know because you want to brush it off and you don't want to have that conversation or you
Right.
don't want to turn into an argument or you rather argue because you want me to just drop it and I'm going to get frustrated.
Right.
And it's like great. He's supportive with my mom. He's, supportive with my school. He's supportive with those aspects. And he's great at calming me down for those things.
Hmm.
But when it comes to the me and him part of it, it's just like, what issue? It's like he wants it to almost be like non existent.
Right. I'm almost wondering, just because he does seem, I mean, he obviously cares about you a great deal, and there's obviously a lot of love there. Have you guys ever had the conversation of maybe just being friends just because of the amount of care and love that there is between you guys?
I mean, me personally, I don't think I could just be friends.
Mhm.
That for me is just like if we're gonna break up, we're gonna break up, and we're not gonna be in each other's lives. Or if we're gonna take a break, we're gonna actually take a break and try to work on, seeing if we still want to be together or not.
Right.
But he never wants any of those scenarios. When I mention having a break and when I mention, us having time apart from each other, it's like, no, 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 no.
Right. Just an instant no. I mean, you might have to just force the conversation upon him as much as you've already tried to do it. I mean, there does come a point where, you know, they say you can't beat a dead horse. And I think there's going to come a time where you're going to feel, if you don't already, frustrated and fed up just completely with everything going on. And rightfully so, because you have your mom to worry about and you have school to worry about. And, you know, obviously relationships and love and all those things are very important, but your family's always going to be important, and school, you're trying to better yourself, and it's something that you are doing for yourself. So that's definitely something that ranks in the top 3 of things that you need to focus on. And, you know, if you try to have conversations with him where you're like, well, this is all I'm going through and I don't really know and I'm kind of spiraling a little bit, and he can't calm you down from that, or he can't rationalize that, then he might not be helping you, he might be hurting you trying to get to a solution, essentially. So you might have to either, I know we talked last time about, you know, just maybe saying, listen, I can't do this. It's either we do a break or we break up. There is no in between. Like, I can't stay with you right now. I need to figure out what's going on and see if that makes a difference. You know, you might have reached that point just because it isn't necessarily something you need to work on in a relationship, and it might actually help you to focus, to take one piece of the equation away, where you can focus on your mom and you can focus on school, and then you can just kind of work on yourself. And then that way, during the break or however you guys decide to do it, he can work on his issues, because his issues are not your issues. And unfortunately, a lot of times in relationships, significant others will make their problems your problems. And, you know, most people, especially people who want to be counselors, want to fix people. And you can't fix somebody who does not want help, essentially. You can help somebody, and you can't even help them, you can guide them, sort of. There's nothing, we can't take somebody, pick them up, put them somewhere and say, this is where you need to be and this is what you need to do, sort of thing. Things would be a lot easier if we could do that, because we could just kind of push people in the direction that they needed to go and we wouldn't really have to worry about it. But unfortunately, sometimes it is like beating a dead horse, and it's unfortunate to have to say sometimes you need to know when to kind of pack up and say, well, I've done everything I can. But I think you might be at the point where, for your own sake, because you have so much going on, it might be better for you to take a step back. And then let's say that you have these 3 pieces. You have your mom, you have your school, and then you have him. So if you take a break from him, you step back from that for a little bit, and your school semester is ending on Tuesday, and there's a nice month, at least 3 or 4 weeks before the next session begins again, you could potentially have that time to, yes, worry about your mom and think of new ways of how you're going to keep her safe. But then you also are freeing up all this space to kind of worry about yourself and your own mental health and working on yourself completely in regards to nobody else. So not working on yourself in a relationship or working on yourself to be a caretaker, but just working on yourself and working through your anxiety and things like that, because it's totally normal to have anxiety, and it's totally normal to be nervous and fearful of the things that you have going on in your life. And I applaud you, because I think I probably would have lost my SHIT personally if I was in your scenario, and I applaud you for being able to handle it as well as you are doing thus far.
I think the hard part is when it comes to, even if I was to want to take a break with him at the moment, is the simple fact that even though we have our issues and we're not able to fix what's going on between us, he is comforting in a lot of other aspects.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to basically, I don't know, cling to him for the other stressful moments,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that I get some type of comfort when it comes to my mom, or a mental break. It's like a home away from home almost. And I guess that's kind of normal when you've been for someone as long as I've been with him. You find little bits of comfort in many different ways. So
Thank you.
I feel as if like if even if I was to do that, I think it would make me more kind of like more miserable in a sense because I can't have my friends there 24/7 and I can't have my family there 24/7, you know. And sometimes, even if I do have those elements there with me, it might not necessarily be something I want.
Yeah, no, absolutely understandable because I understand separating friends and family and you tell them both kind of two separate issues sort of thing sometimes. And there are some people that kind of fall in the in between, but then, your partner, you tell everything to and you just kind of unload and you vent sort of thing. Even if you guys were to take a break from each other, this is where I was kind of going with before, the whole just being friends aspect. Maybe even just for a few weeks to kind of go on a bit of a break, and you guys can still talk because taking a break doesn't mean not talking from each other. It just kind of means, you need to focus on yourself, he needs to focus on himself. But, that could be something that you could talk about with him too and say, you really are a big source of comfort for me and it really does help me, and I would like to keep that aspect of our relationship, or that's one of the reasons that I love you so much, and then kind of create a dialogue from there sort of thing.
It's easier said, even if I was to put it across to him in that manner. Telling him is one thing, and him going along with it and agreeing with it is a wholly completely different thing. And then that in itself turns into an argument like, no, I don't want this. No, I don't want to do this. No, like I'm not okay with this.
Do you just get into arguments if you have the conversation in person? If you wrote it down or just wrote all of the things that make you unhappy on a list, sort of, would he be more receptive to that because he doesn't like the confrontation of the fight, or he doesn't like where the path of the fight could necessarily lead you guys?
I feel like no matter how the conversation is put over, because I've done it through text, I've done it through phone, I've done it in person, and he understands what I'm telling him. But for him, it's just like I just want to argue. He just loves to argue. It's just like nitpick at everything I'm telling him. I know this already. I know this already. Like, I don't want to talk about this.
Right. I mean, then, you'd have to do this regardless, but your decision is, how are you going to maintain your own mental health during all of this? Because keeping yourself happy and keeping yourself sane is more important than appeasing him. And you need to make sure that, you're not burning yourself out by doing your schoolwork and taking care of your mom and then essentially catering to his needs, because if your life right now is cut into those three pieces, there is no fourth piece for you. There is no extra time. There is no effort. You are just exhausted physically, mentally, emotionally, and you need to be able to take care of yourself too. So, what is something that you could work on maybe the next week, 2 weeks, just to make sure that you're okay and that you're taken care of? What is something, because I know you mentioned that you like to walk, but what's something that maybe you can do that would only take up a very small window of your time every day, like 10, 20, 30 minutes, that could put you a little more at ease?
I think just not dealing with the issues that I have with him personally and kind of just letting it lay low for now is one easy way of just okay saying like, you know what, these issues are here, but I'm gonna deal with this later. Um, and leave that alone for now because issues I have with my mom are way bigger and way more important than the issues I have with you. So for me, it's like trying to get her a home attendant, get her out of the hospital, get her to eat right, get her to basically, do all the right things that's going to help her heal and make me feel better knowing that she's okay and that mentally she can also get better is more important right now. And finishing fixing up my apartment because it looks like a hot mess since I started rearranging,
Mhm.
which I used as an outlet in the beginning to rearrange and to fix up and buy things, was also like a really big outlet for me too. So, I had to put that on hold. I want to finish that.
Right. I mean, that's a really good idea to not, you're not in a position to say, I know what I want, or, I'm able to control that right now. So you can focus on what you can control. Your mom's issues are way bigger than the relationship issues you're having. So you can put something on the back burner like that, and you can say, you know what, I don't have the time to deal with this right now. This is not my biggest priority. I have more things to deal with than this. And I mean, that's totally okay to do. You're allowed 100% to say, I'm not dealing with this right now. You got to do exactly what's best for you. So, I mean, putting that on the back burner, even just for a week, 2 weeks, I think that's a really good idea. I definitely think that could maybe lessen, I want to hope lessen your load a little bit, maybe lessen the anxiety a little bit. And then you'll have more time to focus on you and like your family and stuff.
I'm hoping that that's what it does, and that it'll make a significant difference. And then that way I know at least I'll have that out of the way.
Right, yeah. I mean, you have a good head on your shoulders. You have a clear-cut idea of, you know, what you need to do, what you want to do. And I mean, you know exactly what you need. So if you find that during the process of saying, this isn't important, but this is, you can find your ideals kind of switching a little bit and maybe placing more priority on something else and saying, well, you know what, my mom's doing well, so I want to focus on this right now. And that's okay too, because it's not saying that you don't care about the other things. You're just finding more time and more space to kind of fit other things in, as long as you're not overwhelming yourself with all of that.
Yeah, I know these couple of weeks is going to be coming, and so my next semester is going to be a little bit more hectic and probably tedious, but hopefully it works.
I mean, that's definitely something to think about now that you can try and plan for. I know it's really hard with being so uncertain about how things are, and being uncertain about work and school and everything else. But that's something to think about. Like, summer courses are very intensive, they're shorter, but there's the same amount of information placed in. And fall, yeah, the courses are longer, but it does take up more of our time, and it does, it's all new knowledge that we're learning and taking in, sort of thing. So, you have this time to kind of decompress, and then you're just going to throw yourself back into it. So focus on other things in this kind of downtime that you have, but then don't take on too much, where then when school starts, you find that you kind of have to keep everything on your plate. Maybe set up 3 separate plates and say, okay, this is for after school, this is for school, and this is for something else, sort of deal.
I kind of feel like even though I'm going to have that many breaks between the semester till the next, I don't know why. I just feel like everything is just still going to continuously go into the next year,
Mm-hmm.
and it freaks me out.
I think a lot of people feel very similar to that, because it's this like kind of dread of like the unknown. Because even for people that are not control freaks like myself, I think everyone's kind of panicking about sort of, where does we go from here? How do we live our lives? How do we need to adjust? And for the most part, half the world is adjusting, where we can work remotely, we can do school remotely, we can see our families every single day through FaceTime and Zoom. And there's the other half that And I totally get it. Technology does not cut it. You need to be in person for things. And not knowing how things are going to be these next few months it's taken a toll on a lot of people. It definitely is making, big splash in people's lives, essentially. Would you think that, with school ending on Tuesday and you having a little bit of a break, um, would you think that it's kind of plausible for you to maybe relax a little bit on things because you won't have school for a little bit, even though the fall semester is a few weeks away?
I do feel like it'll help me be able to do all the other things that I want to do and get a lot more done, um, to erase some of the clutter in my apartment of what I'm rearranging and fixing. And then I think once I'm able to focus on my mom a little bit more of getting what I need to get done for her, it's going to be a lot more of an easy process.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a good kind of game plan lined up essentially. It's definitely something that's going to be helpful. It's definitely something that you feel a little more that you'll be able to control because you have a set plan. And some people work better, myself included, when there's a little bit of a plan going into things. And it's obviously something that you're going to be committed to because you care about your mom and you care about your own self. And so keeping everything in line is really important for you. And I think it's definitely achievable. I know, anxiety doesn't go away that quickly. It's there, but I think you'll be able to manage things better. Um, Even if things are still a little bit unknown, I think with less things on your plate, you'll feel a little bit more in control, even if you really aren't.
I do feel that. Like, I feel like when I get certain things done and I have better control over those aspects, it makes it a lot easier for me to feel accomplished and more in control and satisfied with things versus everything's all over the place and I'm feeling like I can't do anything about it.
Right, yeah. I mean, sometimes it's just little things that will make you feel accomplished too. It doesn't have to be like some big thing like, wow, I got a 4.0 all semesters of grad school. If somebody does that, that's amazing. I don't know how they do that if they're working and taking care of their family and everything else. But I mean, even just learning new skills or, learning anything in that aspect. You could teach yourself how to knit, and that is still an accomplishment. That's still something that it kind of takes your mind off of things sometimes and it kind of puts you in your own little bubble. Like you said, going for walks and things. I mean, even going for a walk, you could pop in music, you could pop on a podcast, audiobook. You can turn it into kind of like your own little accomplishment. And if you have to do little things to kind of get you through, I mean, that's totally okay too.
I definitely will try walking more, and see that how that can help. I mean, I know it's going to be difficult to fit that in because considering the fact that, when my mom does come home, I still have to wait till she gets a home attendant and, know that she has someone who's looking after her. So it's kind of hard to do things when she's home and there's no one there necessarily to watch her.
Right, yeah. I mean, even thinking, if she's home and you make lunch at 12:30 and she eats and then if she's going to go lay down or she's going to go watch TV or a movie, maybe during that period where okay, she's eaten, she's gone to the bathroom, everything is next to her on the table, and she's kind of in a place where she's going to be stable for 20, 30 minutes, even if you take a short walk around the block, just something to get out, clear your head. Because if something does happen, you know, your mom can call you and she'll be right there. And if she's in a scenario where it's less likely for something to happen to her, rather than like you just getting up and saying, okay, I'm going for a walk. If you need me, like I'll be back in an hour. If you set her up in a position where okay, you're sitting, you're watching TV. I'll be back in 20 minutes. If you need me, text me, or text me every 5 minutes, call me every 5 minutes so I know you're okay. Anything that kind of reassures you, it's reasonable to ask, and I'm sure she probably wouldn't have a problem doing it. Like most daughters get annoyed when their mothers call constantly. You could take the role of her mother and say, well, I'm going to call you every 5 minutes to make sure that you're still on the couch and you're still doing what I asked you to do when I left.
It's just knowing that even if I'm gone for 20 minutes, something could happen freaks me out too, just because, it's like I can call her and she can answer and she could be okay in that time and moment. But, it took just a split second for her to go from being okay to getting dressed to wanting to all of a sudden go outside. And if I didn't, if I wasn't aware or if I didn't wake up, what
Mm-hmm.
could have happened? And I was right in the house.
Right. Is the home attendant, do they have like set hours that they would come? Would they come only during the day, or are they working on maybe getting somebody like 12-hour day, 12-hour night? How do you think that they're trying to work on that?
So because the hospital gives temporary home health aides, right now it would just be like something for 4 hours every day. It's not something that, would be round the clock or one would come in and then another one, would come in after and that one would leave. That's another whole process that I have to do on my own just to get her a full-time home health aide.
Right. Yeah, sometimes those processes take a long time and it takes talking to 20 different people. I mean, hopefully the hospital will provide you with somebody first, and then while that person is there and you know that they're there, you can kind of take the next steps to worry about getting somebody else once they're done doing it.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for as well.
I mean, it's an achievable goal. It's definitely something that you can work towards, and I would say it's on the top of your priority list. So you have your priorities in check at least.
It is something that I'm definitely going to put into effect and I'm trying to get done soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you got to call the same person 20 times, call them 20 times and annoy them, because sometimes badgering people is the only way that you can get through, especially if it's hospital, insurance, any of those people. Sometimes it takes a bit of badgering for them to realize that, this is important. This is something that she cannot come home without. She cannot be without this.
It's hard because sometimes, they look at her and they see that she's fine. So to them it's like, oh, well, she looks okay, she sounds okay, she can tell you her birthday, she can tell you the day, like so for them it's like, oh, she doesn't need someone who's like full time or a bunch of hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens with a lot of the older generation where, well, they look fine on the outside, and I've had a stable conversation with them, but things sometimes aren't all there, and it's not at all times where things are kind of a little wonky. So I mean, definitely I would keep almost track maybe of, if you notice her when she comes home, maybe her forgetting more things or seeming a little disoriented, maybe keep a notebook and just with the date and time. And then that way, if it happens multiple times one day, and then, or it happens once a day, and then all of a sudden it starts twice a day and it goes up, you can kind of have a log to say, like, no, this was not one time. This has been an ongoing problem. And this is something I told you about in July. And I'm going to continue to press you on because this is something that's happening to her.
Yeah, that does sound like a good idea. I think I might do that as well.
Because you're the only person that's actually there with her. And, you can ask your family members if you go out to do the same thing and say, look, I need you to keep track of how she's doing mentally, emotionally. Is she acting odd? Does she know exactly where she is, who she is? And just kind of keep track, because I mean, disorientation is a scary thing, especially if you're not there to be there with her all the time. Eventually, you won't be. There will be other people coming in and out. And so it's important for all of you guys to be on the same page and keep track of that.
because it's just me, it makes it a little bit more difficult if, I was to go out and hope for someone else to do that. My grandmother's 90. She's definitely not going to.
Hmm.
um, so, that comes the issue of basically me being alone in the process.
Right, yeah. That's one of those things that falls directly on you again. I'm thinking that maybe if you can start that kind of system while it's just you, and then once the hospital sends a health aide, maybe even those 4 hours during that time, you could say, hey, listen, this is what I started doing. Maybe we could continue doing that just to keep track of her and just to keep track of what's going on. And then, you could work with them, then you can work with somebody who comes in permanently. And even if it's just the two of you, because you guys will be the people that spend the most amount of time with her, and it might have the most amount of impact.
Yeah, I will definitely do that when I do get someone coming into the house to help.
Yeah. All right. So our time is up for today. I hope, talking through some sort of things maybe lessened your anxiety a little bit. I hope maybe you can go on some walks, even if it's just a 10-minute around the block, something to kind of just get out of your own head every once in a while and just to prevent you from burning yourself out pretty much. And if you'd like, we can schedule another meeting, same time next week. We can do the same day. You can just let me know what works for you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Bye.